Does international volunteering appeal to you? We'll talk with an organization that promotes a call to action on Travel Television. We'll visit the beautiful Tuscan town of Lucca in Italy in this episode. All these stories and more. Now, on to our first stop.
My name is Linda Jackson, and I'm the volunteer coordinator of the NEDA organization down here in New Orleans in the Lower Ninth Ward. And one of our main missions is to try to clean the Lower Ninth Ward up so it could not look like a jungle and turn into a garden. And we start out with volunteers from all over the United States that we get, and thanks to the volunteers, we are advanced. One of the things that we do is we go around into the neighborhood and we cut the grass and we cut the trees and we cut the lawns to kind of like make it look good so that the residents in the Lower Ninth Ward could see that we are coming back. And one of the things that they do need to see is that we are looking like a community so we could turn it into a neighborhood. Volunteers are always welcome down here in the Lower Ninth Ward because we're always in need to try to help rebuild and clean up the Lower Ninth Ward. And you can get in contact with me. My name is Linda Jackson, and the phone number is 504-373-6983, or you could call me on my cell, 229-269-9078, or you could send in information. Contact my email address is linda.davisis@yahoo.com, and all are welcome, and we do appreciate anything or any help that you guys can provide for us.
With the theme, Every Citizen a Diplomat, the Center for Citizen Diplomacy encourages volunteerism from Americans abroad. The center recently launched an initiative for global citizen diplomacy to recommend an expansion of existing citizen diplomacy efforts. This includes a call to action for all Americans to become more globally engaged through multiple efforts and international volunteer services. Travel Television recently met with Tom Gittens, the DC liaison.
We're here with Tom Gittens from the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Abby. Good to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing?
Sure. The U.S. Center, which is just now 2 years old, was organized and rose out of a number of summits around the country at the local and state level, which brought together folks and communities around the country to take a look at how they could increase their activities and engage themselves more in global issues and in global volunteerism and in global service. And over the past, over a 2-year period, prior to 2 years ago, there were about 60 summits around the country that were held. And out of that came a desire that people expressed to have some kind of a central coordinating body that would not necessarily be another exchange organization, but which would be a catalytic force. The mission of the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy is to dramatically increase the numbers of Americans who are engaged globally, however they choose to do it.
Okay, and how do you think the new administration is going to change this situation?
I think there's great hope for the new administration, both in national service and volunteering nationally. And as you may know, President Obama in his recent address to Congress did focus on national service, on volunteerism. He's focused strongly on Peace Corps, and we expect that there will be a strong focus on global volunteer service and getting engaged globally.
Are the things that the center's doing that people can get involved at a local level?
If you're a home host, if you are hosting an AFS student or an international exchange student, you're a citizen diplomat. If you're engaged in your Rotary International in your local community and they're engaged in international service or youth exchange, you're a citizen diplomat. So anytime you step foot outside the country, you're a citizen diplomat, but there are many ways that you can be a citizen diplomat here at home as well.
Particular actions that you're hoping to get through the new administration change in the recent call for action?
Absolutely, yes. On February 5th, we did have a rollout at the National Press Club of a call to action for global citizen diplomacy for a national initiative. We do hope that the President will join us in that call to action. And there are hundreds and possibly thousands now around the country who have signed on to that call. And again, if you go to our website, you can sign on to the call to action if you want to join the center in calling for increasing our opportunities globally. There have been many obstacles recently to global involvement and global engagement, and we're trying to open the doors now, and particularly with the new administration, to new opportunities for folks to become engaged and to be more aware of the world, to increase their knowledge about the world, and to have people know us better and understand us and our values.
My one pair of tennis, underclothes, pants.
As Hurricane Gustav took aim at New Orleans, 45-year-old Joyce Butler packed some clothes and followed a mandatory evacuation order.
We boarded a plane, and that was my first time ever getting on a plane. And they brought us here.
Butler is among hundreds of New Orleans residents relocated to Nashville, Tennessee to ride out the storm. She is staying at a Red Cross shelter at Hillcrest United Methodist Church.
Do you need to make a phone call?
I just let them know that I'm safe.
With help from church members, Butler has been able to call her adult children and stay in touch over the internet.
This is my daughter.
Paul Rearick refused to leave Metairie, Louisiana without his family, a 5-year-old tortoiseshell cat named Maggie.
And quite frankly, it's the last thing that I have left since Katrina.
Following 2005's Hurricane Katrina, Paul and his cat were turned away from 3 shelters which refused pets. Since then, home for this pair has been a FEMA trailer, then a motel room, and now a church gym.
After going through, Katrina and everything, we heeded the warning and got out.
Did you get on an airplane?
Families have been told it may be a week before they can return home. Until then, volunteers are doing what they can to make their guests comfortable and to keep their minds off the stress everyone is feeling.
I worry about the children the most. I really want them to feel welcomed here.
These people have welcomed us, they have sheltered us, and they've opened their hearts. They've given the one thing that's more precious than any of that. They've given their time, and that's the one thing that we all only have a finite amount.
Some woofers have 4 paws and a tail, but others, like the ones you'll read about at wwoof.org, are dedicated members of a movement that began in the United Kingdom in the 1970s. Woof is an exchange. In return for volunteer help, Woof hosts offer food, accommodation, and opportunities to learn about organic lifestyles. Woof publishes lists of organic farms and gardeners that welcome volunteers at certain times of the year. The volunteers get to review a diverse list of hosts, offering a wide variety of tasks and experiences. Woof volunteers do not pay for their stay, and the hosts do not pay the volunteers for help. There is always a clean and dry place to stay, and a lot to learn about the culture and the organic lifestyle of the host region. Find out more at wwoof.org. Lucca is a small Tuscan town protected by an ancient wall that hides some of Italy's finest Renaissance architecture. In Lucca, we'll visit some stunning shops as we go off the beaten track.
Welcome to the city of Lucca. I'm standing atop the medieval wall that also acts as a bike path and a jogging trail for residents as well as tourists. The name Lucca is derived from the word Luke, L-U-K, not St. Luke, and that word itself means marshy land because there's plenty of water in this particular part of Italy. The city itself really grew between the 11th century and the 15th century, and that's why the architecture you're going to see in town is of a medieval Gothic nature. I love towns like Lucca, the medieval feel, the narrow cobblestone streets. It's a great walking city, but it's also a great biking city. And what you're going to notice when you're here is many of the locals, their basic mode of transportation is the bicycle. Why? Because of the narrow streets, it's much easier to get around by bike than it is by car. Feel free to rent a bike while you're here and explore the city. When you look at a city map of Lucca, you're going to see an amphitheater on the map. But when you get to the amphitheater, what you're going to see is nothing resembling an amphitheater. What do I mean? Well, in this plaza right here, the only remnants of an amphitheater are the buildings that were built over it that literally encircled the entire plaza. Just 35 minutes from Lucca is Pisa, a site that speaks for itself.
Whether you define getting away from it all by going where the action is, or you prefer the road less traveled, following a few tips can help your next vacation go a little smoother. First, start by searching the web for low airfare. Some sites can save you money on flights if you are flexible at times you need to take off and arrive. Also, ask if any free upgrades are available. They often are. Next, learn about your destination before you arrive. If you're traveling to a different country, get some maps and read some articles to help familiarize yourself with the culture and climate. It's also a good idea to learn a few phrases and some key words in the language of the country you plan to visit. And finally, leave copies of your itinerary with some people who are staying home. Not only will that help friends and family stay in touch with you while you're away, it can also help assure you have a safe journey home.
Entire swamps are being clear-cut, and the whole trees from those swamps are being turned into cypress mulch. The Save Our Cypress Coalition has collected extensive evidence that shows that this is happening. It's the same mulch that ends up in the gardening departments of Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's. You know, we're asking consumers to stop buying cypress mulch, and we're asking distributors like Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's to stop selling cypress mulch. Cutting down cypress forests, literally clear-cutting cypress forests to make cypress mulch is like melting down the Liberty Bell to make paper clips. You know, these companies are turning a national treasure into an inherently disposable product.
Cypress is the most important tree on the swamp. You know, it's the deciduous conifers related to the sequoias and the redwoods. You know, animals in the swamp rely very heavily on hollows to survive, many species of birds and mammals. Because cypress grows so old like the sequoias and so big, they provide the biggest hollow trees and the biggest hollows and the most hollows for animals to breed. So they become the most important tree for the ecosystem. In addition to that, cypress trees, the leaves are edible, cypress balls are edible for squirrels. They lose the bark. You can look at the cypress and see the bark is loose. It's a lot of insects that can move inside the bark, and that provides food for a lot of woodpeckers and other birds. So it's a food-producing machine in addition to provide a habitat for the birds and mammals to breed.
If they were just going in and taking the trees that had a decent amount of board feet or saw log value, you would still have very much intact forests. The problem is that they're taking everything. They're clear-cutting the entire forest, and they're putting most of it into mulch, taking a few big trees and turning that into actual board feet and actual timber. But without that mulch market, you wouldn't have the incentive to go in and actually log those forests.
Your kids and my kids will never see a swamp. So that's what's going on here in Louisiana today.
We can't afford to cut any more cypress down. We need every single one of them out there. We need hundreds of thousands more. Now that we know how important cypress tupelo swamp is for storm surge reduction, it seems ridiculous to me that we're still logging these trees and converting them into mulch. You're taking a resource, it's like paving your driveway with gold. You're taking a resource that is so valuable, of course it'll work as mulch, but so would gold on your driveway. It's absolutely ridiculous.
What the cypress do is they dissipate the actual wave energy, which proved to be proved to be detrimental to the levees. So the levees that were overtopped had a wetland buffer, but they didn't actually breach. The levees that did not have a wetland buffer breached during the storm, and it was the breaches that caused the damage to New Orleans.
And now it floods for too long and too deep, and the cypress can, even in drought years, the cypress can't breathe anymore. So what you see is what you get. There is no little cypress coming up behind those fellows, and if they cut them down, we lose the cypress trees forever.
That's one of the arguments that the loggers make, is that the second growth cypress came back 100 years ago, so if we log it, it'll come back again. But what is not true is that the entire landscape has changed in so many ways. We've dug these huge canals to the Gulf of Mexico that allow saltwater intrusion to occur that didn't used to occur. The sea level rise and subsidence has doubled the rates of flooding in this entire swamp. And so together, those two things alone will prohibit any regeneration or any substantial regeneration. So unless we can alter the hydrology back to the way it was historically, bring the river, the Mississippi River, back into this system to bring nutrients and fresh water and to flush out that salt water, the chances of regenerating on its own, the chances of this swamp regenerating on its own are right around zero.
This is not fighting the landowners. This is not the best interest of the landowner. I mean, they come here and they cut this here one time. They make a few bucks and it's gone forever. Their kids won't have that lumber anymore. I mean, their land will be ruined for lumber forever. I don't think that's the best interest for anybody. I think when you own this kind of ecosystem, you cannot manage it for timber in the long term. So the best interest for the landowner will be to be compensated to keep it the way it is. And I think the best interest for us is to compensate them so we don't lose these ecosystems. All these birds need this coastal forest to feed and move on or to breed, and they're losing them.
In terms of storm surge protection, we really can't let a single cypress or tupelo be logged, and yet they're being logged by the hundreds.
So far, thousands of people have sent emails to the CEOs of all three companies asking them to stop selling cypress mulch. Hundreds of people have called in. We had a particular call-in day where we had hundreds of folks throughout the country and the Gulf call the companies. We need Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's to stop selling cypress mulch. It's an unnecessary and unsustainable product that's threatening the Gulf Coast.
Sometimes the very best part of the trip is the food. Books and television shows have been dedicated to restaurants, both famous and out of the way, so it's not surprising that there's a great website that guides you to the cuisines of every culture. This site has thousands of menus available online in New York, Washington, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, South Florida, Chicago, and the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Within each city, there are hundreds of categories, breaking the menus down by specific area, price points, reviews, and of course, cuisine. Do you want to know where to get a great sandwich in Georgetown, Thai noodles in the Castro, or vegetarian in Key West? It's all available at this easy-to-navigate website. Furthermore, you can sign up to enter your own reviews and keep track of the hottest eating spots in these cities across the U.S. A section called Passionate Responses from Across the Menuverse will keep your finger and taste buds on the pulse of all things foodie. So get ready to eat vicariously. And then, if you start salivating, pick up the phone and make a reservation. There is no excuse now. Get all the menus at the click of a mouse at menupages.com.
On any given Sunday or Saturday or Friday for that matter, at sprawling golf courses around the globe, you will find the golfers, the media, and the spectators you'd expect. It's the people working behind the scenes of these events who might just be the most interesting. The owners of Prom Catering have figured out a recipe for community service that's pretty remarkable. They allow about 15 local charities to work with them at each tournament, thereby giving these non-profit organizations a chance to raise money for their causes. Volunteers log hours and service, and in return, their charity gets a share in the total revenue that Prom Catering takes in during the event. This is a system that has worked magic for organizations large and small who are struggling to raise necessary funds to keep their causes going. So next time you order a lemonade or a hot dog at the golf tournament, remember that you're feeding your appetite through the genius of Prom Catering. You're being served by a volunteer who might never have served food before, and you're a key part of the equation for non-profit organizations around the U.S. Travel Television volunteer hours turn into the fuel that keeps us going back to the Gulf Coast to record the experiences of volunteers and recruit the next generation of volunteers. Help us to keep going by working in the food concessions at the 2009 golf tournament.
Volunteering makes a difference!
When a hurricane hits land, two things happen. It gets detached from the water, so that immediately slows it down a little bit, but then the land offers a source of friction. And the more friction you can get, the quicker you're going to slow that storm down and knock that storm surge down. And there's no more friction to offer a hurricane than cypress tupelo swamp.
Cutting down cypress forests, literally clear-cutting cypress forests to make cypress mulch, is like melting down the Liberty Bell to make paper clips.
Correct. The majority of the logging activities are taking place in areas where we do not have authority under Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbor Act.
Historically, New Orleans was not a coastal city, it was inland almost 100+ miles.
The sea level is constantly rising, and it's going to affect every coastal community in North America and in the United States. Eventually, everybody's going to have to deal with what Louisiana is dealing with now. We really need to elevate this to a national.
Hi, this is Allie the alligator, Pamela the pelican, and Cammy the crawfish. Did you know that we lose a football field of wetlands every 30 to 45 minutes? We have to keep moving our homes over and over again. Do you know why we keep losing our homes? Storm surges, nutria, and oil companies. The storm surges come and cause erosion in the wetlands. The nutria eat the plants that hold the wetlands together. Oil companies keep digging canals to lay pipelines, and this ruins the wetlands. If we don't have any wetlands to protect us, then the next hurricane that comes will flood Louisiana. Please help us to protect the wetlands and save the animals' homes.
If we don't save the coast, we lose New Orleans, we lose every town south of Interstate 10. We're going underwater. We're going to be the next Atlantis. Hitting the Louisiana coast becomes self-defense. This is a homeland security question.
If we don't get this right, we're not going to get any of the other restoration right. This is the test case for restoring in the post-Katrina and Rita world.
Help defend New Orleans and the nation's energy, culture, wildlife, and economy. Join the Call for the Coast now. Text COAST 77007 to demand action to protect and restore Louisiana's wetlands.
Back in the 50s, he was huge. Our wetlands would take out a Category 5. By the time it reached the cities, it was a light rain. Sure, he's gotten knocked around over the years, but that's why we're building him back up. Build up strength, build up size. Because the storms will keep coming. And we all need our wetlands back in top form.
I'm Briggs Cheney and my wife Susie. We've been coming down to New Orleans now for 3 years, at least for me, and I know for Susie because we talk a lot about it. She's a counselor and I'm a lawyer. I don't think well, I won't speak for her. I often feel I don't accomplish much in my life. When I've been down here on these week trips the last few years, I've truly felt as if I've been doing something that's meaningful, and it's been a real experience. All you have to do is talk to the people around here, and everyone believes in what's going on, and I think just for us, when we came here yesterday, there was nothing behind us, and in the course of yesterday and today, we're now about ready to put the roof up, and so it's kind of exciting. It is something we can see when we leave today.
If you have time and at least a week to commit anytime to come down, they'll put you to work doing something that will be helpful. Whether it's working on houses or community centers or just working outreach to the poor, there's lots to be done.